There's no job for someone with such low education. What can a person without any real learning do? My boss said this while laughing, mocking me, a woman who grew up in a single-parent household. I had been working hard all this time for my mom, who raised me single-handedly. He never recognized my efforts and even belittled my mom. Even worse, when my mom passed away, my boss not only spoke cold words, but also, "I'm Sarah, a 28-year-old woman working in a small to medium-sized business. Raised in a single-parent household, I joined the company right after high school as a part-timer and am now working as a full-time employee. The company I work for is of considerable size despite being a small to medium-sized enterprise with a significant number of employees. Initially, I started working part-time, but have fought hard, almost as if my life depended on it. Thanks to that effort, I was recognized by my boss, and I managed to become a full-time employee in my 3rd year. After becoming a full-time employee, I continued to work hard, just like when I was part-time, not wanting to disappoint those who believed in me. By the time I was 25, I was given more responsible tasks compared to my peers of the same age, and I was gaining trust from the company. I was also receiving decent pay and bonuses, allowing me to take care of my mom and live a cherished life. Then, one day, my direct boss was due to retire, and a new boss was to be assigned. It was very sad not to be able to work with the boss who had recognized me and nurtured me, and I had some slight anxiety about getting along with the new boss. But I was achieving results at work, and everyone in the company was kind. Above all, the retiring boss told me he would speak to the new boss about me, so I didn't worry too much. Then, the day of the new boss's first day came after my old boss retired. That day, I was called by the new boss, Christopher. I thought he wanted to talk individually with the person who would become his subordinate, so I headed to the designated conference room. But there, I was thrown unbelievable words by Christopher. "Are you Taylor? The high school graduate from a single-parent household who went from part-time to full-time?" Certainly, the Taylor they were referring to in the resume is me, but I was utterly shocked when they brought it up out of the blue. What on earth does this person want to talk about with me? Their attitude wasn't light or conversational. It was intimidating, like they were judging me. My first impression of this boss, who came at me with such a high-handed attitude, was the worst. But I knew we would be working together for a long time, and I didn't want it to affect our future work. "Yes, I am Taylor. I look forward to working with you." I greeted the boss with a smile, trying to brush off their comment. I still didn't know what kind of person this Christopher was. I thought it best to handle the situation calmly. But Christopher continued to barrage me with unkind words. "A single-parent household upbringing, huh? You probably can't work. You didn't even go to college. What can an uneducated person like you do?" I was more than surprised by the statement. I was dumbfounded. It's true that I was raised in a single-parent household and only graduated from high school, but I am the one who has been performing well in this department. I admit I am not highly educated, but I am producing results in my job. I may only have a high school diploma, but I believe I'm achieving good results. I explained to Christopher that I might have shortcomings, but I am still delivering results. I noticed that, but it seems like your previous boss liked you quite a bit, right? He looked crude and lecherous to me. Perhaps you seduced him to get good results. Christopher started saying something baseless, as if there's no way someone like me with a high school education could do the job. That's not true. My previous boss took a special interest in me, but he only guided me so that I could do my job properly. Of course, there was no truth to what Christopher was saying, and I couldn't keep quiet after being insulted about my former boss who had nurtured me. I didn't understand why he could berate me, a complete stranger, so much, but it must have been his inherent personality. The thought of having to work with such a boss in the future weighed heavily on me. Christopher was smirking at me, and it became clear that he didn't like me at all. But if I could prove my worth in front of this boss, there would be no more room for complaints. From what I heard, this boss truly believes in meritocracy. I decided there was no other choice but to use that to my advantage and work even harder. Then, just as I was returning to the office from field work, it happened. Hey, where have you been? No sooner had I returned to the office than Christopher started yelling at me. I was out on field work? I had noted on the schedule that I would be out on field work today. Confused as to why I was being yelled at, Christopher deliberately came over to me. You're no good at your job, so you might as well do the menial tasks. Organize these documents, he said, handing over a massive stack of papers. It wasn't my job and I didn't have the time to spare for it. But I couldn't defy the boss's orders, so I reluctantly began to organize the documents. Christopher looked at me with a satisfied expression as I quietly sorted the papers. Perhaps because I obeyed his command, he began piling daily chores on me from that day on. Whenever I tried to do my job, I was accused of being a payroll thief for not doing the assigned work, or yelled at for hours over minor mistakes. He even insulted me, saying, "You can work because you come from a single-parent household." Until now, I found satisfaction in my work by producing results and being recognized by the company. I was earning enough, providing for Mom, and living without complaints. But now, I feel stress every single day. I have to live, and quitting my job now would worry Mom. I wanted to avoid that at all costs, so I desperately continued to work. One day, Mom came to me with a request. She wanted to find part-time work. Even though I was paying for living expenses and supporting her, she apparently didn't plan on being taken care of forever. She was considering when I might get married and wanted to save some money for herself. I couldn't afford to refuse it either, so I decided to talk to the company. Fortunately, they were hiring an office worker at the time, so it was a perfect fit. It had nothing to do with my department, so I shouldn't have to deal with that horrible boss. After consulting, I was immediately interviewed, and Mom was successfully hired. And so, Mom started working as an office worker at the same company where I work. Mom was happy with the comfortable workspace, saying that going to work every day was enjoyable. But a week after Mom started working, I was called by Christopher.
Your mom got hired as an office worker? That short woman? Is she the one who raised you as an uneducated idiot?
Christopher always looks at me with a nasty expression, making fun of Mom too. I don't know why he knew about Mom, who had taken an office job without speaking to him, but my stress more than doubled. It was more unbearable to have Mom spoken ill of than myself. Above all, I was worried and restless, wondering if Christopher would say something directly to Mom. I didn't want to make Mom feel bad. However, contrary to my worries, everything seemed to be going smoothly with Mom. As I had feared, Christopher occasionally came to make snide comments. But Mom is a strong woman who raised me all by herself. It seems that such things don't bother her at all.
It's like a child's insult.
Mom laughed. I was relieved by Mom's strength, as she didn't seem to care about Christopher at all. Even after that, Mom didn't pay any attention to Christopher and enjoyed working in her new environment. Then one day, something happened. Mom collapsed and was rushed to the hospital by ambulance. Fortunately, her life was not in danger, but she had to be hospitalized for a while. Because of the sudden incident, I decided to take some time off from work to take care of Mom. However, when I told Christopher about it, he had an outrageous reaction.
Huh? You plan to take time off for something so trivial? You must be taking your job lightly.
Christopher, with an exaggerated sigh, made it clear that he would not allow any time off. I'll use the paid leave that I haven't used yet. After all, I'm the only one there for Mom. Permission for this leave had already been obtained from someone higher up than Christopher. They were more than willing to grant me the time off, especially since I had seldom taken any before. But no matter how I explained it, Christopher would not be convinced.
It's not about that. Just leave an old woman whose life is short anyway.
I was thrown a thoughtless comment, and I could feel my blood rushing to my head. Why would he say something like that when I'm telling him Mom has collapsed? I have endured everything he said until now, but I finally reached my breaking point. I can't work under such a person anymore. Once I thought that, I couldn't hold myself back. I knew it might be a hassle for others, but since Christopher came, all I was assigned was menial tasks. Having lost all motivation and given up, I immediately told Christopher that I was quitting. His reaction was one of surprise as he said,
You don't have to go that far.
Trying to stop me. He must have been afraid it would become an issue that he caused me to quit. But of course, my feelings didn't change. I had enough savings and I could live on that for a while. Ignoring Christopher, I quit my job on the spot and devoted myself to taking care of Mom. Eventually, things settled down with Mom's care, and I decided to re-enter the workforce. I thought about doing the same kind of work as before, but I, having been successful and confident in my abilities, chose otherwise. Having learned a lot about business management from my retired former boss, I took the plunge and decided to start my own company. I wanted to tell Mom after things had settled down, so I struck out on my own. About a year passed, and the company was beginning to stabilize. Suddenly, Mom's condition worsened, and she had to be hospitalized again. I was caught between taking care of Mom and running my business, but I managed to handle both without taking any time for myself. Thanks to that effort, Another year went by, and the company was on a solid track, reassuring me of its stability. Although Mom's condition hadn't improved, I wanted to ease her mind, so I was thinking about telling her soon. But then, Mom passed away. It was a truly sudden event, and it didn't feel real. But the sad truth was that Mom had undeniably passed away. Being an only child, I had no other family, so I had to prepare to say goodbye to Mom without time to grieve. Holding back tears, I proceeded with various arrangements. Although I hadn't worked as a clerk for very long, many people who had been friendly with Mom at the company where I worked were willing to attend her funeral. Maybe it was because of Mom's personality, but they wanted to be there. And on the day of the funeral, more people attended than I had expected. It must have been due to Mom's popularity. Despite the pain of losing Mom, I was filled with pride knowing that so many people had come out for her. However, just as the funeral was about to end, the sight of one particular attendee caught my eye.
Long time no see. So that old woman finally kicked the bucket, huh?
I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the infuriating figure of Christopher standing there. Though he may have had some interaction with Mom, I had no recollection of inviting this man to the funeral. No matter what, I would never invite someone like him to Mom's funeral. My old boss was smirking at my stunned expression. The very same face he made when he belittled our single-parent household. Those unpleasant memories came flooding back. I could do nothing but glare at Christopher's face. Christopher approached me, handing me a bunch of flowers.
Here, some flowers. She might have been the sort of woman who couldn't provide her daughter with a proper education, but at least I can do this much.
How could he act like this at someone's funeral? I almost yelled out loud in anger, but I clenched my emotions. I don't want to ruin Mom's funeral or inconvenience the other mourners. I accepted the flowers in silence. But, unbelievably, the flowers looked like something he had picked up off the street. Had this man come all the way just to pull off such a nasty trick? As Christopher saw my face, he grinned even more maliciously. That moment, my suppressed emotions came out. I couldn't stay silent after having my precious Mom ridiculed so much. This is how you feel about me then? I understand. In that case, I'll have to call off our business deal with your company. Christopher stared blankly at me as I said this.
Huh? Deal? What are you talking about?
My foolish former boss looked clueless, not understanding what I meant. So I explained to him, politely, the meaning behind the words I had just uttered. So this is a matter of business with my company. I've been asked by my colleagues and seniors in the sales department to sign quite a lot of contracts. But I want to terminate all those contracts. I want to rethink our relationship with a company that has someone like you, I declared. At first, my former boss didn't believe me, but the next day he sent a written notice to Christopher's company. Christopher, upon seeing it, looked quite pale. He never expected that I had started a business and succeeded, so he came to apologize immediately with the president.
I'm sorry,
Christopher said, his attitude hardly apologetic. My anger did not subside. You're sorry? You think that's enough? Insulting my mom while she was alive, only giving me menial tasks. And what about the funeral? You think everything until now can be made right with such a shallow apology? As I continued to speak, Christopher looked at a loss for words. Beside him, the president who had come along apologized deeply.
I am so sorry for not noticing,
he said, tears welling in his eyes. I had been greatly helped by the president, so I felt terrible. In the end, out of respect for the president, I decided to continue the business relationship. Hearing me and the president talk, Christopher wore a relieved expression.
Oh, what a relief. Let the bygones be bygones and move forward together,
he said, offering a ridiculous smile and extending his hand for a handshake. He must have thought we had reconciled, but it wasn't such an easy situation.
You're fired, Christopher,
the president announced right in front of me.
What? Fired? Why? I got forgiveness and we're continuing the deal,
Christopher protested to the president, looking disbelieving. The president had decided to fire Christopher, knowing I would not be satisfied continuing the business relationship this way. I only decided to continue the deal out of respect for the president. I never intended to forgive you. I will never forgive you no matter what you say, I said, as if delivering the final blow. Christopher fell completely silent.
It's the result of your own words and actions,
President spoke as if tossing his words aside and then left, dragging a completely dejected Christopher with him. The next day, it seems that my former boss really was fired from the company. Afterward, I received a resentful call from Christopher. He lamented losing his position and the fact that finding a new job at his age would be difficult.
You've ruined my life. Take responsibility for what's happened,
he yelled over the phone. I made a proposal to the furious Christopher. How about I hire you at my company? I can't pay you much, but it seems like you're out of a job because of me. When I said that, taking responsibility as he demanded, he suddenly exploded with emotion and hung up. Being employed by someone he had ridiculed must have been a complete humiliation. I knew he probably wouldn't accept this offer. But a month later, apparently unable to find another job, Christopher asked me to hire him, abandoning all his pride. Honestly, I was surprised, but I decided to hire Christopher. Then, I made him experience the same humiliation I had endured as an employee.
Hey, why do I have to do these menial tasks? Anyone could do this.
Now that our positions were reversed, Christopher began to complain. But I kept him on menial tasks, giving him no responsible work. At your age, to be fired for incompetence? I can't imagine you'd be able to handle real work. Besides, the boss's orders are absolute, so you can't defy them, please, I said coldly. Christopher looked downcast. He looked entirely different from the arrogant person he was at his previous workplace, and his appearance was extremely shameful. Soon after, Christopher quit the company. He probably couldn't endure the humiliating treatment from me, but it was all something he had done to me. Doing to others what you hate being done to yourself is just nonsensical. Not understanding such a simple thing eventually leads to a difficult situation where everything is lost. By the way, my company is still growing steadily and doing reasonably well. Persistent effort will surely bring results. and without it, only modest success will follow. Whether you end up like Christopher or not is truly up to you, I believe.